Welcome to Home Biz Tax Talk. My name is Lysandra Everett. I am the Home Biz Tax Lady, where I help home business owners win the tax game. Home Biz Tax Talk airs Monday through Friday. And when you tune into my show, you're going to hear about topics that are important to the home business community. And today I want to talk about this suspending passports because of tax debt. I've started to get a lot of questions about this, and mainly because, in the home business industry, there are a lot of people that are making tons and tons of money on the internet. The problem is that there is nobody saving up for taxes, but we're making this money. We getting, all this new money, going out and spending money, living the life, where even if it's paying off debt, you still have to pay taxes on this money. And so a lot of people, unfortunately, they just don't know. I don't know how, but that's just what it is. And I think that there is a lot of teaching that is not going on systemically, not just in our schools, but also in our homes, understanding the requirements when it comes to taxes. So we have especially a lot of younger people that are, growing up not really talking about taxes, and that are going out here making a whole bunch of money and then winding up in tax debt, not really understanding the implications. And so now, we got this question about these passports. So I want to talk about that because I even have people ask me, like, why didn't I know about this new law? So let me tell you how this happens. One of the things that I will also tell you is when you hear about all these acts, they come up with the Secure Act and all these acts that have these 6-mile long names, and they come with these cute little titles. You really have to read what is in these things to understand what is going on. And if you don't take the time to do that, you wind up with these surprise laws, okay? So this particular law came about in the FAST Act of 2015. FAST stood for Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act. Does that sound like there's anything in there involved with taxes? Not at all. But what happens is that when Congress goes and makes these laws, they slide this stuff on in there, right? Just like even with the Secure Act, they slid in an increase in penalties. So if you didn't read it, you don't know about it, and you won't know about it until you get hit with that penalty. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought it was just this. Oh, no, they increased that bill. So what the FAST Act said was that for Americans that have seriously delinquent tax debt, that the State Department can suspend your passport. Now, I know a lot of folks are like, well, seriously delinquent, what does that mean? That has been translated to mean $50,000 or more in tax debt, that this State Department can suspend your passport. Now, this was signed into law. This FAST Act was signed into law into 2015, but people really didn't start getting letters until 2019. It was a 6152 letter that basically said, hey, you've got this seriously delinquent tax debt. You need to contact the IRS and work it out, or you are at risk for having your passport suspended. Now, I know folks that may be watching this saying, okay, well, I'm not going anywhere to need a passport. But you have to understand that the value of a passport is beyond, okay? Because your passport, if you think about it, when you go and apply for a job and you have to do the I-9, right? You can have a passport, which is like column A, I think, or you've got to have 2 of the other documents from each of the other columns, like B and C, right? So your passport really is gold. So let me just say that. And it does not matter if you plan on traveling internationally or not, you should get a passport. That is a complete aside from this conversation. But so that's what happened with these letters. They started sending them out in 2019. And so what happens in the process? So the IRS doesn't go from 0 to suspending your passport. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that has happened in between. You've gotten a letter that says, hey, you owe us this money. Or, and they send out a series of letters. The problem is that people are afraid and don't open the letters. That is the absolute worst thing that you can do. So it's not like all of a sudden the IRS is suspending your passport, putting a lien on your property and all that. The only way that happens is if they believe there is a high risk of you skipping the country or something like that. But usually there's a process, okay? So now here's the thing. There is nothing that says that the IRS has to warn you about your tax debt. They can just, hey, get with the State Department and boom. They're going to suspend your passport, and you won't know that necessarily if you're not opening any letters, right? If you're not opening any letters, you won't know until you try to go somewhere and they go, you can't leave. Okay. So the letter that you received that says that, hey, here's your tax debt and, we're going to suspend your passport is a CP 508C letter. Okay. 6152 is a warning. CP 508C is your junk is getting suspended and you need to go work out your tax debt. So what kind of people does this impact? It impacts people that live abroad. Okay, there are people that live abroad but still maintain their U.S. citizenship. Well, if you get into this seriously delinquent tax debt area, $50,000 or more, and they suspend your passport, guess who ain't coming home until we get this tax debt straight? Okay. And it's not to say that, suddenly they make you an expatriate. An expatriate or an expat is someone that decides to move abroad and renounces their citizenship and all of that stuff. That's what an expat is. So having your passport suspended does not mean that you're suddenly an expat, but it does make it a little bit more difficult for you to get back in this country. And also, if you live here and you owe this money and you're trying to go and get your life, they're going to say, no, you need to pay this tax debt first. Okay. So it will be very wise of you to really get this tax situation under control, whatever that is. You have, habitual non-filers, people that just don't file just cause, and then because they don't hear anything for a while, then they just don't. Again, for my younger squad, my younger millennials and going into the Gen Zers, like I know this conversation is really not being had. So I really hope that, if you're watching this video, that you'll start to ask some questions so that you know what's going on, because it's really, the 1099 miscellaneouses, the 1099Ks, these are the things that are getting reported to the IRS that a lot of times people don't know. And you've gone and made all this money and you haven't paid any taxes, and because nobody says anything for a few years, you think you're okay until you start getting these letters, right? So again, if you get a letter from the IRS, do not ignore it. Open it, take action. Don't just sit there and think it's going to go away, because that is not going to happen. Becoming a habitual non-filer, even if you owe, you still need to file. Okay, you can work out the tax debt if you file. Is when you don't file that you force the IRS to enforce the law. And I've talked to a lot of people just inside conversations that are like so upset about all these laws and all this stuff. Well, you know what? You got to pay attention. Can we catch everything? Absolutely not. But you have to know the things that are important to you. And you also have to know who your representative is, because we get so caught up in the presidential election. Listen, you got a president for 8 years max. These folks been in Congress for decades. Okay. There are people that have been in Congress probably as long as you've been alive. But because you don't understand the process, you don't understand, why it's more important to vote for these people or not vote for these people than it is for a presidential election. And I say that because you have to understand that Congress writes the laws, right? Congress writes laws. And, when you get upset about this and you get upset at the IRS, it's not the IRS's fault. The IRS does what Congress tells it to do. So it's not the IRS's fault that this became a law. It's Congress's fault. They wrote the law, right? So, and I share that with you because you're walking around being upset at the wrong people and taking action or trying to take action against the wrong people. Again, total aside. But yes, if you have a delinquent tax debt of $50,000 or more, the IRS can contact the State Department and suspend your passport or not renew your passport, or even to the point of revocation. And you really don't want your passport revoked, like for real. Okay. So if you got a problem with tax debt, schedule a call with me. You can still use the same link, homebiztaxchat.com, to schedule a call to help you deal with this. Go ahead and start getting it fixed so you don't wind up in, a lot worse more headaches than it really takes. Because see, once the process is in place, there's nothing that like puts the State Department on the hot seat that says, hey, okay, they've taken care of their tax debt, so you need to go ahead and remove that suspension. No, it's a process. And what you don't want to do is get caught up in the process. Okay. So thank you guys so much for tuning into Home Biz Tax Talk. Again, we air Monday through Friday, and you can come right here to get your questions answered about your home business taxes. And listen, if you are dealing with tax debt or you're, haven't filed anything, please contact me so we can get you straight. Okay. All right. Have a great day, and I will see you all next time. Bye.